How would you feel if you could change your car every 3 years with no additional deposit and no change in your monthly payments? Here's how.
I'm not sure how you funded your last vehicle, but a lot of our customers actually fund their vehicle using either a hire purchase agreement or sometimes a personal loan. Is that something you'd be familiar with?
Yes, well, I did my finance through the dealership directly with Volkswagen.
So that would be Volkswagen Finance, perfect. Now, what that means is you've probably got a hire purchase agreement currently, so you're familiar with the hire purchase agreement.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, YourChoice as a product is actually a personal contract plan, or purchase. It's a PCP. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yes. Kind of.
Okay, well it's actually very similar to a hire purchase agreement, but it's got a few additional benefits, which is why it's so attractive to someone buying a brand new car. Now, the easiest way to explain it is to actually show you it on screen here, because this makes it visually easy to go through in some detail. Now, a conventional hire purchase agreement, or maybe a personal loan agreement, normally starts with a deposit, and that deposit is normally funded through somebody trading in a vehicle, a part exchange. Is that what you did when you bought your...
Yeah, I traded in my car.
You did, perfect. That's what most people do. So the trade-in actually covers the deposit, and what tends to happen after that is we spread the rest of the outstanding balance over a term, and you make equal monthly payments. So the balance of finance is spread out. Now, what we've found here is that these finance agreements, these hire purchase agreements, are now becoming more often than not 4 or 5 years in terms of length. Now, have you got any idea of why that might be?
Well, I did mine particularly over a long term because I wanted to keep the repayments down. This is more affordable. A
lot of people do it purely based on affordability. So effectively they're funding the car over a longer period to make sure that the payments are small enough to make it comfortably affordable. Now, there are some downsides of keeping a car for 4 or 5 years. In fact, you mentioned earlier that you were concerned about the maintenance costs of your vehicle now.
It is becoming now, yeah, but my warranty has expired. It's only 3 years, so now I'm having to pay for the cost of repairing it.
Exactly. The manufacturer warranty is 3 years, and as soon as that expires, there's some additional costs that you start to accrue, and most people want to avoid those longer-term ownership costs, which is one of the reasons why a new product like YourChoice has now become available. Now, let me explain what YourChoice looks like. It is, as I said, a personal contract purchase, and it allows you to purchase a car in a pretty similar way to a hire purchase in that it starts with a deposit. But you'll notice graphically we've displayed the deposit here slightly smaller than the deposit on a hire purchase agreement, because in normal terms we only need 10 to 15% as a deposit. So quite often we're actually in a position where the part exchange vehicle, your trade-in, is worth more than that. Because we don't need that much, we actually give you some cash back.
Really?
Now you're smiling now, aren't you? A lot of people smile when I mention the word cash back. The idea is that we only need between 10 and 15%. So as I say, if your trade-in is worth more than that, we can give you some cash back. And I won't tell your husband either. You can go shopping with it, couldn't you? Now, after the deposit, we do the same thing in terms of spreading the balance to finance over a period of time. But we have a PCP product here that only limits itself at 3 years. It's only a 3-year product.
Wouldn't that make the payments really high?
I knew you were going to say that. Quite often the problem with having only a 3-year period is the payments become too high. Now, the way we avoid the payments becoming high, the way we keep the payments affordable, is we actually offset a percentage of the value of the vehicle to make one final payment. Not dissimilar to the way at the end of a hire purchase agreement you make the final payment as the purchase fee. We actually offset a larger amount of money. You know, it could be 40% of the vehicle's value, and we offset it until the end to make one residual payment.
Is it one of these balloon payments?
Balloon is not a word we tend to use here. Balloon is similar in terms of what it's doing, i.e. it is a one payment that's at the end of the agreement. The main difference is between what we call a GMFV, which is a guaranteed minimum future value, and a balloon, is twofold. Firstly, a balloon is normally set as just a percentage, and in many cases it doesn't relate to the actual price of the vehicle with any science. What a guaranteed minimum future value is a true estimate of the value of the vehicle after a period. So we actually give a different GMFV on every single vehicle. We work out what the vehicle is going to be worth after 3 years and set that amount specifically for each vehicle. And more than that, we also guarantee that we will give you that as a minimum. Because a lot of people that have had balloons in the past are concerned that when they come to change their vehicle's worth less money than the balloon payment.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've heard?
Yes, heard some horror stories. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's why some people don't like the idea of a balloon, which is why we make sure we clearly explain this is not a balloon payment, it's a residual value that is guaranteed by us. So worst scenario, we will give you that amount to clear your finance.
Right, okay.
Now, some of the other benefits in terms of it being what we call a guaranteed minimum future value actually move toward the three options you have available at the end of the agreement, and I'd like to explain those to you.
Okay.
The first option is that you part exchange the vehicle, pretty similar to what you've done today. So effectively, you would come into the dealership, we would value it. The value, we believe, will be somewhere between 10 and 15% higher than the final payment.
Right,
As I said, we set the payment fairly conservatively, so you've got enough money in the value of your vehicle in terms of equity to clear the finance and carry forward 10 or 15% as a deposit for your new car. Now that's your first option, and that's what we talked about earlier in terms of changing more regularly.
Yeah.
The second option available for you is to actually, if you decide you want to keep the car, you know, you really enjoy driving it, you're not ready for a new car, what you could do is just come in and simply refinance that residual payment over another 1 year or 2 years, which effectively makes it not unlike a 5-year agreement in the first place. The final option, and what really is the option that makes this absolutely unique as a product, is that the third option is you could physically come back and hand the car back. You know, if your circumstances have changed, let's say you've got a company car or you wanted to emigrate, maybe away from this lovely, you know, the lovely weather we're having at the moment, you could physically walk in here, subject to certain terms and conditions, and hand the keys back and walk away with no further obligation.
What are the terms and conditions?
What are the terms and conditions? So basically, they're split into two areas. The first area is around mileage. The PCP product of your choice actually has a mileage limitation of 6,000 miles per annum. So if you exceed 18,000 miles over the 3-year period, we charge you 10 pence per mile after that.
Okay.
Now, I noticed when I appraised your Polo that you'd only done 12,000 miles in some 4 years,
Yes,
so that's probably quite unlikely. The other part of the terms and conditions are around the condition of the vehicle. Obviously, we'd expect the vehicle to be brought back and to look like it should do as a 3-year-old vehicle. You know, if it came back and it had scratches, it had ball tyres, you hadn't serviced it, there would obviously be problems with that. But if you look after the car properly, you can hand it back, and as I say, with no further obligation.
Okay.
Now, to be honest, very few customers actually do that. In fact, less than 2% of our customers physically hand the car back, primarily because when we set this amount, we set it conservatively, and therefore when it comes to the end of the 3-year period, there's actually an amount of equity. And why would someone want to physically hand a car back where there was potentially some equity for them? So that's why we don't actually see that happen very often.
Okay.
Now, can you see why a lot of customers are now attracted to this type of product?
Could you work me out some figures?
I can do. I mean, just to summarise the product in real terms for you, the product allows you to have the vehicle that you want over a shorter period, so you can change into a new vehicle more regularly. Your payments are affordable, you have one final payment, and should the worst come to the worst, you can physically hand the car back without any problems.
For more information, please contact the Motor Finance team.